President Obama ended his meeting with Latin American leaders as he began it, reaching out to the harshest critics of the U.S.
How are you, sir?
Like Nicaragua's President Daniel Ortega. At a closing news conference, the president said he'll respect those countries who disagree with the U.S.
The United States obviously has a history in this region that's not always appreciated, but that what we need to do is try to move forward.
But Mr. Obama repeated that talking alone is not enough.
We've seen potential positive signs in the nature of the relationship between the United States, Cuba, and Venezuela. But as I've said before, the test for all of us is not simply words, but also deeds.
And he suggested specific steps he'd like to see Cuba take.
There are some things that the Cuban government could do. They could release political prisoners. They could reduce charges on remittances.
The president criticized what he called the inflammatory rhetoric of Venezuela's Hugo Chavez, but said talking to him wouldn't harm U.S. interests, and that he was not concerned about how it looked back home.
I don't worry about the politics. I try to figure out what's right in terms of American interests, and on this one, I think I'm right.
At the end of his second major international trip in as many weeks, the president explained his approach to foreign policy.
We do our best to promote our ideals and our values by our example.
White House officials point proudly to the fact that there were no fights at this summit over Cuba, despite the continuing U.S. embargo. It's something many people had expected. But the criticism of the president's outreach to Hugo Chavez of Venezuela has already begun back home. Bill Plante, CBS News, Trinidad.